Welcome to Vetted, where we examine the world's most mysterious encounters with a critical eye and a dedication to the facts. Tonight, we'll journey to the banks of the Pascagoula River in Mississippi, a place forever marked by one of the most astonishing and credible alien abduction cases in American history. Every detail you'll hear tonight comes from actual witness accounts, police records, and news reports. This is the story of Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker, and the night their lives were changed forever. It's October 11th, 1973. The humid Mississippi night is thick with the sounds of insects and the gentle lapping of water against the shore. Charles Hickson, aged 42, and 19-year-old Calvin Parker have come to the river after a long day at the shipyard. They cast their lines from an old pier, hoping for a little peace beneath the stars. Suddenly, a strange buzzing sound cuts through the night. Both men look up to see a glowing, oval-shaped object descending from the sky. It hovers silently just above the ground, casting an otherworldly blue light across the riverbank. Before they can react, a hatch opens in the side of the craft. Three beings emerge, unlike anything they've ever seen. They are tall, gray, and humanoid, but their skin is wrinkled and pale, almost elephantine. Their faces are featureless, save for pointed ears and carrot-like protrusions where a nose and mouth should be. Their hands are like pincers. The beings float toward Hickson and Parker, gliding effortlessly above the earth. Both men are paralyzed. Whether by fear or some unseen force, they cannot move. The beings seize them with their pincer-like hands and lift them effortlessly from the dock. The men are floated into the glowing craft. Inside, the air is thick and metallic. Calvin is separated from Charles, placed in a different room. He sees a single, large eye on the wall, scanning his body up and down. He feels cold, mechanical hands probing his arms and legs, but he cannot scream or move. Charles, meanwhile, is suspended in midair, surrounded by the strange beings. He hears a series of electronic buzzing and clicking noises, as if the beings are communicating. He feels a device pressed against his body, cold and unyielding, scanning him from head to toe. Both men are terrified, convinced they may never leave the craft alive. But just as suddenly as it began, the examination ends. The beings float them back toward the hatch, out into the night, and set them gently down on the riverbank. The blue craft rises silently into the sky, vanishing in an instant. The men collapse to the ground, trembling and disoriented. For a long while, they sit in stunned silence, struggling to make sense of what's happened. Charles is the first to speak. "We have to tell somebody," he says, voice shaking. Calvin is terrified. He fears no one will believe them, or worse, that they'll be ridiculed. But Charles insists, and together they drive to the local sheriff's office. Inside, Sheriff Fred Diamond and Captain Glenn Ryder listen as the men recount their story. The officers are skeptical, but the terror in Hickson and Parker's voices is unmistakable. To test their truthfulness, the officers leave the two alone in a room with a hidden tape recorder running. On the secret tape, the men speak in hushed, frantic voices, unaware they are being recorded. "Jesus Christ, what just happened to us?" Calvin mutters, his voice breaking. Charles tries to comfort him, but both are clearly traumatized. The officers, listening later, are struck by the raw fear in their voices. The police investigate the scene but find no physical evidence, no footprints, no scorch marks, nothing to prove or disprove the men's story. Still, their conviction and terror leave a deep impression on everyone who meets them. News of the abduction spreads quickly. Reporters flock to Pascagoula, and Hickson and Parker are thrust into the national spotlight. Charles, older and more self-assured, gives interviews and tells their story. Calvin, shaken to his core, retreats from the public eye, refusing to speak to the media. Under hypnosis, both men recall the same details: the blue light, the floating beings, the examination aboard the craft. Their accounts remain consistent, even under intense scrutiny. Psychologists and UFO investigators, including the famed Dr. J. Allen Hynek, examine them and find no evidence of deception. Despite the ridicule and skepticism from some quarters, local authorities consider the men credible. Sheriff Diamond later says, "If they were lying, they should be in Hollywood." The story becomes one of the most carefully documented abduction cases in American history. In the years that follow, Charles Hickson continues to speak publicly about the encounter, even writing a book. Calvin Parker, traumatized and deeply private, tries to move on with his life, haunted by nightmares and anxiety. Then, decades later, in 2018, Calvin Parker finally breaks his silence. He publishes his own book, The Pascagoula Abductions, revealing new details and confirming what he and Charles experienced that night. His account is raw, emotional, and unwavering. Parker describes how the experience changed him forever. He speaks of the fear, the ridicule, and the struggle to find peace. "I just wanted to forget," he says, but the truth had to come out. His bravery inspires a new wave of interest in the case. Other witnesses begin to come forward. Some claim to have seen strange lights in the sky that night. Others recall hearing the same buzzing sound along the river. The Pascagoula case is revisited by investigators, and new documentaries bring the story to a global audience. Skeptics continue to search for rational explanations: sleep paralysis, hallucination, or hoax. But the evidence remains elusive, and the sincerity of Hickson and Parker's testimony keeps the mystery alive. Local authorities, for their part, never waver in their belief that something extraordinary happened that night. The secret police recording, the consistency of the men's stories, and their clear terror convinced many that the Pascagoula abduction was no simple fabrication. Today, the site of the abduction is marked by a small plaque. UFO enthusiasts travel from around the world to stand on the banks of the Pascagoula River, to gaze at the water and wonder what really happened that night in 1973. The Pascagoula abduction remains one of the most credible and chilling alien encounter stories ever told. It is the story of two ordinary men thrust into the extraordinary who endured ridicule and fear but never changed their story. As you reflect on the story of Charles Hickson and Calvin Parker, ask yourself, what would you do if faced with the unknown? Would you speak out or remain silent? Would you trust your own memories or doubt what you had seen? Thank you for joining us tonight on Vetted. If you found this story compelling, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe the Pascagoula abduction? Was it a case of mistaken perception, a psychological phenomenon, or a genuine encounter with beings from another world? Until next time, keep questioning, keep searching, and remember, the truth is out there, waiting to be vetted.